This will be our last video on the topic on neuroscience and behavior. In this video, we will talk about what influences our behavior. When we want to understand what influences our behavior, the nature and nurture debate will always be brought up. So here is an image of two gold medalists, so Michael Phelps and Simone Biles. Michael Phelps is a good swimmer, and for nature, we may say that it's because of his longer body that allows him to move quickly through the water. And for Simone Biles, because she is quite tiny, we may say that a shorter body can rotate and spin more easily, so she is able to win the game. And for nurture, because they both work hard in training, they are able to achieve good results. So this is an example of the interplay between nature and nurtured talent. Distinguishing the effects between nature and nurture could be more easily done among animals compared to humans. For the reason being, it may be easier to set up experiments without too complex ethical concerns. So in the past, we have conducted mating experiments and also have conducted aggressiveness studies in dogs. So have non-aggressive dogs raise aggressive dogs or the vice versa. But in humans, it is more difficult because we cannot randomly assign people to mate with a partner, or it's impossible and unethical to assign babies to different parents. So we may utilize animals to achieve these aims. Another technique to understand the nature and nurture relationship in shaping our behavior is called behavioral genetics. Once again, it is quite hard and unethical to conduct mating studies in humans, so we may rely on adoption studies. So having children who are not raised by their biological parents and compare any differences. As discussed in previous lectures, studies on twins can also help reveal the amount of genetic influence in one's behavior. So in the left image is my sister and I. So we are identical twins. We have one zygote, and then we share 100% of our DNA. And on the right picture is a pair of fraternal twins. So they each have one egg, and then they share half of the amount of DNA. To quantify the nature and nurture relationship, researchers can use the heritability coefficient. So this is to measure how much genetics influence on a trait. So the values can range from 0 to 1, with values closer to 1 indicating a greater influence of the genes on a trait. Gathering different research to date, we have found that the more genetically related people are, the more similar they are. So this explains why you are quite similar to your family. So this includes similarity in height, weight, intelligence, and also emotions. So the more genetic relation equals more similar. So among twins, if one twin has schizophrenia, it is very likely that the other twin will also have among identical twins. However, don't get discouraged if you think you don't have good genes. It's because not all behavior traits are inherited. And genes and environment can interplay together in order to produce the ultimate behavior and ultimate results. For example, there are individual differences in susceptibility to stress in the genes. However, whether a person may be stressed also depends on the real presence of the environmental stresses in the context. And also nutrition plays a major role because genetic, although they can influence a person's levels of cholesterol, but it still depends on what choices you make and what foods you eat. So in line with this concept is the key term, epigenetics. So the environment can actually change the way genes are expressed or may even inhibit some genes. In studies among identical twins, they have found that twins are more similar when they are young. But as they become older, they have been exposed to different environmental stresses and also interact with other people and other choices. So their experiences will cause some genes to express for one twin and some will be inhibited in the other. So over time, identical twins will become less similar. Apart from genetics, evolution also plays a major role in our behavior. There are two classes of adaptations in evolution. The first one is survival adaptation. So for example, have you noticed that you crave for fatty and sugary food when you are hungry? So this is for survival purposes. And for the other one is for reproduction. So this is based on the sexual selection theory. So the evolution characteristics may provide a mating advantage. For example, the plumage of peacock feathers can help attract mate. Evolutionary psychologists are interested in understanding psychological adaptation. So finding out what mechanisms of the mind have evolved to understand the problems of survival or reproduction. So for example, Japan is a collectivistic culture that values group contribution compared to the US, who values individualistic accomplishment. So they found that in Japan, reproduction success is higher when a male is able to make contributions to a group success compared to an individual one. And males who do so are able to attract more mates and have greater reproductive success. Based on the sexual strategy theory, humans have evolved a list of different types of mating strategies. It can vary by culture or different social contexts or parental influences. So the theory focuses on identifying the differences between men and women in their mating preferences. So based on a broader conclusion, they have found that women value mates who have possession of resources, access to resources, and also being committed to their relationship. So in sum, women are looking for more ambitious mates. And in contrast, men tend to find mates who are young, healthy, and attractive. So their overall goal is to look for mates who are fertile. So in this video, we have already talked about different influences of our behavior. So we have talked about the genes and also evolution. But there are also other factors that influence our behavior and even mood. So for example, hormones. Hormones play a role in aggression. So it's possible that boys are more aggressive than girls because androgens promote aggressive behaviors and boys tend to have higher levels. And hormones may also influence parental behavior in women. So they found that women who had high concentrations of blood cortisol are more likely to exhibit affectionate behaviors and talk more to their babies. And the hormone of oxytocin plays a big role in love. And finally, for the social psychology context, the presence of others can also cause or buffer stress and other mood. So for example, when you are giving a speech alone versus with different people, your stress levels may change. And whether you have enough social support or social resources can also influence your mood and behavior. So this wraps up the video on neuroscience and behavior, and I hope you have